The Defence of the Realm Act was legislation introduced at the beginning of the war in August 1914. It was designed to control all aspects or large aspects of society within Britain and Ireland. Effectively, it gave extraordinary powers to the state over civil society. Now, amidst that legislation, there were clauses that dealt with the newspaper press so as to prevent information flowing to the enemy or information that the authorities would judge to be detrimental to the success of the Crown forces. The clause itself talked about anything that caused disaffection to His Majesty or His Majesty's forces. What they meant by that was if a newspaper, for example, was to write an editorial or a report advocating that the Irish men don't recruit or enlist into the British Army, that would be considered detrimental to the government cause or to the general war effort. So those newspapers, under the regulations in the Defence of the Realm Act, could find themselves liable for prosecution or even suppression. Now, to suppress a newspaper, the Crown forces or either the police or the military would just arrive at newspaper offices and dismantle some of the key machinery. At the time, the press was divided into two camps, really. The mainstream press, what you could call the Irish Independent and the Freeman's Journal and the Irish Times and the large regional newspapers, they all supported recruitment to the British Army and supported the war effort. Opposition to that consensus existed primarily amongst small newspapers, socialist newspapers, what was called advanced nationalist newspapers. So at the time, Dublin Castle's own intelligence reports list about between 30 and 40 newspapers that were either socialist or linked to Sinn Féin or linked to the IRB, the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And it was those papers that the Crown forces were most interested in shutting down or somehow curtailing. Amongst those newspapers were papers such as Arthur Griffith's Sinn Féin newspaper or Era, or there was the Irish Worker, founded of course by James Larkin and then at that stage run by James Connolly. And that paper ran the slogan, "We serve neither king nor Kaiser but Ireland," and that was a key paper in opposing recruitment to the British Army. It said the Irish men should not be going to fight in foreign war for a foreign power. They should remain at home, and if there was any fighting to be done, it should be done in Ireland's cause. That newspaper was suppressed at the end of 1914, as were a number of other newspapers, including Arthur Griffith's Sinn Féin newspaper. They were suppressed primarily because of their opposition to the war. Then journalists such as Arthur Griffith would make ingenious at times efforts to contravene or to get around the Dover restrictions, the Defence of the Realm Act, and he created a newspaper called Scissors and Paste, and that too was suppressed after a few months. And then he created a newspaper called Nationality, and that was also suppressed. So the Crown forces did keep a keen watch on newspapers they deemed as disloyal, even though there was division within Dublin Castle. The Chief Secretary for Ireland didn't really see these newspapers as a threat, whereas military figures judged newspapers like the Irish Worker and similar newspapers as profoundly detrimental to the cause of recruitment, and they reckoned that the newspapers cost the British Army tens of thousands of recruits within Ireland, even though that is probably debatable and it's hard to truly ascertain.